You know how people say, when you know, you just know? I used to believe that. I thought love was something sure and steady, undeniable when it was real. But that was before I found out my husband was sleeping with my sister. You know how people say, when you know, you just know? I used to believe that. I used to think love was this glowing certainty that wrapped itself around your bones like a second skeleton, stronger than whatever came before. That was before I found out my husband was sleeping with my sister. My name is Anna, and I thought I was living the kind of life I'd fought hard to deserve. We weren't perfect, but we were steady. Predictable. James and I had been married 5 years, and if you'd asked me last month, I would have told you we were okay. Not fairy tale in love, but not one of those hollow, smiling couple at the dinner party types either. Real. Grounded. Or so I thought. I was folding laundry when it happened. Isn't that always the way? Something utterly mundane, then boom, your life implodes. A pair of lacy black panties that weren't mine fell out of James's gym bag. My first instinct was denial. Maybe they belonged to a friend's girlfriend? Maybe he was carrying them as a prank? Maybe, and I can't believe I even thought this, maybe I had bought them and just forgotten? But I knew better. They weren't mine. They were delicate in a way I never dressed. They smelled like her. Her. My younger sister, Emily. The realization wasn't a lightning strike. It was a slow, suffocating coil around my lungs. That awful, creeping intuition, the late nights, the hushed calls he took in the hallway, how stiff he'd become when Emily dropped by unexpectedly. I used to laugh it off. You're being paranoid, Anna. Don't turn into one of those jealous wives. Except maybe I should have been one of those wives. Maybe I would have seen this coming. That night, I sat in our kitchen with the panties spread out on the table like a crime scene exhibit. James walked in, all calm and whistling, and the second he saw them, he froze. Didn't speak. Didn't lie. Just stood there, mouth slightly open, eyes flicking between the underwear and my face, calculating how screwed he was. I asked one question. Is it her? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence wrapped its fingers around my throat and squeezed. I didn't cry. Not then. I think some part of me detached the moment he looked away instead of telling me it was a mistake. That was the moment I stopped being his wife and started being his reckoning. You'd think betrayal would be the worst part. But no. The worst part was calling my mother and hearing her say, Anna, maybe she didn't mean to. Like sleeping with your sister's husband was a clumsy little accident. Like Emily just tripped and fell onto his dick. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't give either of them that satisfaction. Instead, I made a plan. Because if James thought he could tear apart the one person who had always fought to keep everything together, then he didn't understand who he married. I had spent years cleaning up after people's mistakes, his, Emily's, even my mother's passive-aggressive dramas. This time I wasn't cleaning. I was dismantling. I waited 3 weeks. Just long enough to make him think I was trying to forgive him. I let Emily keep visiting while I worked late. I let him believe I was too devastated to ask questions, too spineless to retaliate. I even smiled at him during dinner. I cooked his favorite damn lasagna. Meanwhile, I was gathering receipts. Screenshots. GPS logs. The burner phone Emily used to text him, I cloned it when she left it charging at my place. I found everything. Every photo. Every I miss you. Every sick little fantasy they spun behind my back. And then I found something else. Emily wasn't just sleeping with James. She was planning to move in with him. They were waiting for me to break. They didn't know I don't break. I burn. The first domino fell on a Saturday. Our annual family brunch at my parents' place. Picture it, sunny morning, mimosas, my mom's peach cobbler. James on my right, Emily across from me, laughing too loud at his jokes. My father, oblivious as ever, carving ham like it was Thanksgiving. I waited until the table was full. Then I pulled out my phone, cast it to the living room TV, and said, Hey, Mom, Dad, I think you should see the slideshow I made. And just like that, the room went still. Slide 1, a selfie of Emily and James in our bedroom, timestamped 3 weeks ago. She's in my robe. He's in my bed. Slide 2, a text from Emily that read, I can't wait until she's out of the picture. Slide 3, a video of James telling her, she's boring, babe. You're the one I dream about. My mother's fork clattered to the floor. My dad stood so fast he knocked over his chair. Emily gasped like a child caught stealing. James just stared at the screen, blinking like it would change if he blinked fast enough. But that was only the beginning. Because I had so much more planned. It was strange, the way everything got quiet after the slideshow. Like the air had been sucked out of the room, and we were all just sitting there, suspended in that horrible stillness, me, James, Emily, my parents, and a ruined breakfast spread that suddenly smelled like rot. Emily was the first to speak. Of course she was. Anna, what the hell is wrong with you? Not I'm sorry. Not it's not what it looks like. Just immediate, wounded rage, like she was the one who'd been ambushed. James didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His face was pale and tight, like his skin didn't fit anymore. My dad, God bless that man, looked between them and then at me, like he couldn't make sense of the puzzle he was suddenly dumped into. Emily, please tell me this is some kind of joke. Emily laughed. Actually laughed. Bitter, high-pitched, cracking at the end. A joke? No, Dad. This is Anna being dramatic. Again. That's when my mom snapped. You shut your mouth. I hadn't heard her speak like that since I was 10. She was shaking, hands clenched in her lap like if she let go of control, she might slap someone. Maybe for the first time in her life, she saw what I had been trying to say for years, that Emily wasn't just messy. She was cruel. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. I picked up my purse, left the TV screen flashing another one of their texts. Do you think she suspects? She's not that smart, and walked out the front door. But here's the thing, that was just the performance. The prologue to a much bigger show. The next phase was all logistics. Over the past 3 weeks, while James thought I was healing, I'd been transferring assets. Quietly. Strategically. Our joint account? Emptied, slowly, in $100 withdrawals and checks written to a shell account I'd opened years ago when James first started showing signs of being more charming than loyal. The house title? Technically in both our names. But the down payment had come from my inheritance, and I had the paperwork to prove it. I wasn't just going to leave him. I was going to strip him bare. While he sulked in our bed, probably texting Emily under the covers, I had already filed for divorce, on grounds of adultery, with evidence so solid even the judge was going to need a drink. I hired a forensic accountant, found out James had been siphoning money into a crypto wallet, probably to start his new life with my sister. I smiled when I saw the amount. Just enough for a pathetic apartment and a mattress on the floor. Perfect. 2 days later, I served him. Not at home. Oh no. At his office. At lunch. He was in the middle of a client meeting. I waited in the hallway while the receptionist buzzed his name like it was just any delivery. When he stepped out and saw me standing there, manila envelope in hand, something flickered in his eyes. Relief? Hope? Maybe he thought I came to talk. To patch things up. To do what I'd always done, carry the emotional weight of his immaturity. I handed him the envelope. You've been served. His mouth dropped open. Anna, what is this? Divorce, I said flatly. With attached exhibits. Pages 12 through 29 are screenshots. Might want to read them before your boss does. He didn't speak. Just stood there while the receptionist gawked and 2 paralegals in the hall tried not to snort. I turned to leave, but then I paused. Oh, and James? He looked up, eyes dull. You left your email signed in on the laptop. The one I use for freelancing? Yeah. Big mistake. That was the day I emailed every major client at his firm with a BCC list of every dirty, degrading message he'd sent Emily from his work address. Including the one where he called me a useless lump and her, the only thing that makes him feel alive. Poetic. His firm asked him to resign within 48 hours. Not because they cared about the affair, but because of the discretion clause in his contract. Turns out, calling your wife a parasite on company email isn't a great look when you're supposed to be managing millions in client accounts. Emily, meanwhile, thought she could just move in with him. She showed up at our house the day after he was served, suitcase in hand, like some tragic mistress ready to claim her prize. I was already gone. And the locks were changed. You know what's funny? His parents called me. Not to apologize. Not to check if I was okay. But to scold me. James's mother, ever the master of delusion, said, "Honey, men make mistakes. It doesn't mean you need to ruin his entire life." I swear, I almost laughed. Funny, I replied. Because he had no problem trying to ruin mine. She huffed. He's still your husband. No, ma'am, I said sweetly. He's now just your problem. What James didn't know yet, and what Emily still doesn't know, is that I'm not finished. Because the thing about a house made of lies? Once you smash the windows and kick in the doors, all the secrets come flying out. And I've got one more grenade to throw. But that comes next. You know what no one ever talks about? The quiet after the explosion. That weird silence when the dust is still in the air and people are coughing through the wreckage, but no one knows who's supposed to sweep it up. That's where James was, standing barefoot in the ruins of his reputation, his career, and what little was left of his dignity. And me? I was thriving. I moved into a 2-bedroom rental with sunlight that kissed the floor every morning and neighbors who smiled when they saw me. The kind of place that felt like a fresh page, still smelling of new paint and second chances. I changed my number. Blocked his. Set email filters so his desperate subject lines, "Please just talk to me, we can fix this, I still love you," went straight to trash. Emily too. Her texts came in like missiles at first. You blew up our family, you don't understand what love is, I didn't mean for it to happen. But here's the thing, when someone chooses to betray you, they also choose to live with the version of you that survived it. James had no job, no home, no access to the joint accounts, because surprise, I had already closed them. Every paycheck had gone into an account I created under my LLC years ago. He never noticed, never questioned. He thought he was the breadwinner. I let him think that. Let him puff his chest about paying bills I paid weeks before he even saw them. But it wasn't just the money I took. It was his comfort, his identity. Because James needed people to see him a certain way, successful, admired, in control. So I made sure to rewrite his story in a language he couldn't erase. The social part came next. I sent a polite email to our mutual friends, colleagues, and even the couples we used to double date with. No drama. No anger. Just facts. Hi all. I wanted to share some difficult news. James and I are separating due to infidelity. The situation is painful, but I believe in honesty. Please know I wish you all the best and am focusing on healing. Anna. Simple. Subtle. Nuclear. The fallout was swift. 2 days after the email, I heard from Melissa, one of the more social wives in our circle. She sent me a screenshot of a group chat. James had tried to spin it. Said I was unstable. That I'd hacked his phone to fake texts with Emily. Then Melissa, sweet, ruthless Melissa, sent the message that made me howl with laughter. You idiot. You were in the background of one of your own photos. In her mirror. The man couldn't even cheat without leaving breadcrumbs. But now comes the part I've been waiting to tell you. The part that still gives me chills when I think about how perfectly it all unraveled. 3 weeks after the brunch takedown, I got a call from my lawyer, Denise. Calm, focused, with a voice like velvet over steel. I need you to come in, she said. Now. I thought maybe James was trying to contest the divorce. Maybe Emily had filed something insane, like defamation. But no. It was better. Denise slid a folder across the table. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. Sloppy penmanship I recognized instantly. It was from my aunt, my dad's estranged sister, who passed away 6 months ago. The one who had no kids. No spouse. Just money. And a sharp memory of how much I used to visit her, even after everyone else stopped. Turns out, she'd left me everything. Not just the house. The land. 20 acres of lakeside property in Vermont. And a trust fund. One she didn't want publicized, but that had matured into a 7-figure inheritance. James had no idea. Not because I kept it secret, but because he never asked. He never cared. And now? He couldn't touch a cent. But here's where it got truly poetic. The land was part of a limited development contract with a boutique real estate firm James had pitched to 2 years ago. I remembered him bragging about it. If we get this deal, he said, I'll be set. They passed on him. Said he was too flashy. Too slick. Too temporary. Guess who they reached out to now? Me. And I said yes. I didn't go public with it right away. I waited until the sale was announced online, complete with my name in the press release, Anna G. Langley, sole inheritor and new development partner. James's name wasn't mentioned once. He saw it, of course. Called my mother. Left her a voicemail, weeping. She always knew how to make me feel small, he sniffled. She doesn't have to humiliate me. But it wasn't about humiliation. It was about liberation. I saw him once after that. In a grocery store parking lot, of all places. He looked older. Grayer. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep but from realizing you've permanently lost access to the one person who made you tolerable. He approached like someone walking into a firing squad. Anna, he said, voice low. Can we talk? I just tilted my head. About what? He didn't know how to answer that. You don't have to hate me, he tried. I know I messed up. I smiled, softly. Almost kindly. I don't hate you, James. I just don't think about you at all. Then I walked past him, cart full of fresh produce and a bottle of wine that cost more than his monthly car insurance. But Emily? Oh, Emily still had moves to make. And she made the worst one yet. She tried to come for my name. My family name. And that, dear reader, is where she really messed up. Because I was about to teach her what it means to lose everything she thought she could steal. There's a special kind of rage that bubbles up when someone tries to rewrite your history, to take a piece of you they never earned and wear it like a crown. That's what Emily tried to do. After stealing my husband and torching what was left of our family trust, she tried to take the Langley name. My name. Not just by association. She legally tried to change hers. I found out from an old college friend who worked in the county clerk's office. Small world. Smaller town. She called me on a Tuesday morning while I was watering the little lavender plant on my kitchen windowsill. Hey, she said, her voice clipped, you're not gonna believe who was in here filing a name change form. I already knew. Emily. A pause. So you heard? No, I said, smiling grimly, but I knew she was that unoriginal. I sat with that knowledge for a day or two. Let it simmer. I told myself, maybe she's doing it to feel closer to James. Maybe she's ashamed of her own name. Maybe, just maybe, she's not doing it out of spite. Then I saw the Facebook post. Emily Langley and James New Beginnings. And just like that, every maybe evaporated. Because she wasn't just taking the name. She was trying to replace me. Let me paint you the scene. Emily, dressed in my old silk blouse. I recognized the tear near the left cuff, the one she probably thought I hadn't noticed, posing with James in front of a courthouse. Holding up a little sign that read the future Mr. and Mrs. Langley. The comments were a mix of congratulations and awkward silences. My mother left a single comment, wow. My father didn't comment at all. He hadn't spoken to Emily since the brunch fallout. He sent me a text instead. I'm sorry. I don't even have the words for what she's become. And I did. Plenty of them. But I was saving them for something better. Here's where it gets messy, in the best way. Remember that trust fund I mentioned? The inheritance from my aunt? It came with stipulations. One of which was very clear, any financial activity under the Langley name had to be reviewed by the family attorney. Why? Because my aunt had lived through a messy estate war in the 80s, and she swore no one would tarnish the family legacy ever again. I called Denise, my attorney. If Emily tries to do anything, under my family name, I want it flagged. Denise chuckled. Already on it. In fact, something just came through this morning. Turns out, Emily had attempted to register a small business under Langley Interiors. A knockoff design firm that mirrored one I started during quarantine, down to the slogan, "Elegance starts at home." That was it. That was the final match. I didn't sue her. Not yet. Instead, I had my lawyer send a very official cease and desist, complete with a politely worded reminder that the Langley name was legally tied to a family trust and subject to reputational protections. That her application would be denied. That any further attempts would be met with formal litigation. I knew she got it, because the next morning she posted a rant on Instagram. Some people are so bitter they can't let anyone else be happy. It's just a name. Get over yourself. And attached to it? A picture of her and James in my old backyard. The house I left behind. The one I still owned. She forgot that. I still held the deed. And now I had a reason to use it. That weekend, I made a phone call to a property manager I knew. Asked if the leaseback agreement had ever been formalized. It hadn't. James had been squatting. Emily had just moved in. They weren't tenants. They were trespassers. So I filed the paperwork. And 2 weeks later, a sheriff knocked on their door. James called me at midnight. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Anna, what the hell is wrong with you? You had us thrown out of the house. I listened to it on speaker while sipping wine in my new apartment, feet tucked under a blanket. I didn't feel giddy. I didn't feel powerful. I felt done. The next morning, I showed up at the house with the property manager and a locksmith, walked through every room, reclaiming what was mine. The walls were the same color. The scent was different, her perfume hung in the air like cheap sugar. There were candles in the bedroom I never would have picked. A pair of his boxers on the floor. Dishes in the sink. Pictures of them on the mantel where our wedding photos used to be. I stood in that space for a long time. Not sad. Not nostalgic. Just still. Then I walked to the mantel, picked up their smug little photo in the gold frame, and threw it in the donation box. The house sold 3 weeks later. Cash buyer. Over asking. I donated part of the proceeds to a local women's shelter in my aunt's name. I could end the story there. But there's one more piece. One more little twist in the web Emily spun for herself. A family secret. Something I stumbled on when I was cleaning out my parents' attic during a visit. An envelope tucked in a folder labeled Langley, Medical. Inside? Adoption records. Not mine. Emily's. Turns out, she was never a Langley by blood. And the kicker? She'd known since she was 16. So when she filed that second name change appeal, claiming family heritage and personal legacy, Denise attached one simple document to the objection file. Emily Marie Bennett, birth certificate. She got the rejection letter a week later. She posted no rant. No cryptic quote. She went quiet. And in that silence, I smiled. Because I didn't just take back my name. I reminded her whose story she had tried to steal. And who was holding the pen now. I always thought closure was a conversation. That one final, raw, cathartic moment where both people say everything that's been unsaid and then walk away a little lighter. I waited for it. I dreamed about it. But here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes closure isn't a conversation. Sometimes it's a revelation. The morning I got the final divorce papers in the mail, it was raining. Not the dramatic, cinematic kind with thunder and pounding drops against the window, just soft, steady drizzle. The kind that soaks the earth in silence. I stood there, barefoot in my kitchen, holding the manila envelope like it weighed 1,000 pounds. James Langley was no longer my husband. And for the first time in years, I felt light. Not happy. Not healed. But unshackled. It would be easy to say that's where it ends. Papers signed. Names restored. The cheaters disgraced and exiled. But life doesn't wrap itself up in bows, and neither did this. Emily still lived in the city. Word spread fast about the name change debacle. About the house. About her being adopted, which, to be clear, I never publicized. I don't need to shame people for things they didn't choose. But Emily had built a kingdom of lies and tried to crown herself with my legacy. She needed people to believe she belonged, to our family, to James, to my story. When that illusion cracked, so did everything she'd built. She tried to pivot. Rebranded herself as some kind of healing coach. Started a blog full of cliches about empowerment and rising from the ashes. She wrote about betrayal, about being misunderstood, about fake friends and jealous women. She never once used my name. But she didn't need to. Everyone knew. I ignored it all. Until I got one final email. From James. Subject line, "You win." It was short. 4 sentences. "I'm sorry for everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I've lost everything. I hope you're happy." I sat there, staring at those words. Not because they moved me, but because they finally told the truth. He had lost everything. Because he never built anything of his own. So I wrote back. Just once. "I didn't win, James. I survived. And now I'm building something real. You don't get to watch." Then I blocked him for good. People think revenge is fire. That it's explosive. That it scorches the earth and leaves you howling with power. But mine was quiet, controlled, clean. I didn't destroy James and Emily. They did that themselves. I just stopped catching them when they fell. 6 months later, I stood on that Vermont property. 20 acres of land that used to feel like someone else's dream. Now it was mine. The wind off the lake was sharp and clear. The leaves were starting to turn, all copper and gold like they were trying to outshine each other. Next to me was Maya, my contractor. And her wife, Jordan, who helped me draw up the plans for a wellness retreat center. A real one. 4 women. 4 survivors. For anyone who'd been cracked open and was still figuring out how to put themselves back together. There was laughter. And blueprints. And a picnic basket full of too sweet lemonade. It felt like the beginning of something. Not a new chapter. A new book. People still ask me if I ever hear from them, James or Emily. The truth? I don't know. Maybe they're still together. Maybe they've imploded in some new spectacular way. Maybe she finally realized he was just a mirror for everything she hated about herself. It doesn't matter. Because they don't live in my head anymore. I do. And I've redecorated. With quiet mornings. And open windows. And no one stealing my name. At the bottom of one of the donation boxes I'd packed during my move, I found an old photo. Me and Emily, age 6 and 4. Matching dresses. Matching grins. I'm missing a front tooth, and she's holding my hand like she never wants to let go. I looked at it for a long time. Then I slid it into a drawer. Not out of hate. But because I'm done carrying ghosts. Let them haunt each other. I have living to do.